What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another edition of the Vicktory Life Legacy Spotlight. I'm your host, owner, and founder of Vicktory Life, Dwight Vick. And today, this has been a long time coming. I have a very, very special group of people I've known a long time. I have a panel of experts and people I admire in the field of education. Today's episode is Education, Leaders of the New School. And today, as I mentioned, I have four individuals I really wanted to get on together because of their impact in my hometown, my area, the 757 Tower, the Hampton City Schools, and the surrounding area. So I wanted to get you guys on. So how's everybody doing today?
Good.
Great.
Good. So I'll tell you what, as I told you before we hit record, I want you, ladies and gentlemen, to introduce yourself, how long you've been in the field, what's your official title, and your name. So Marcia, I'll start with you.
I'm Marcia Lewis, Hampton City School educator, 25 years.
25 years. And you're an educated teacher, right?
Yes.
Yes, right. All right. Billie.
Yes. Billie Holbrooks. I have been in Hampton City Schools this is my 27th year. And I am also a teacher, currently a reading interventionist.
Yeah, you're very special to people because I had one of those when I was at Eaton Middle School.
Yeah, so did I.
Yeah. Well, we're going to talk about our experience at Eaton.
Yeah.
All right. And Heidi.
So I'm Heidi Brezinski. Right now I serve as principal of Hampton City Schools, but this is year 24. And so I've been a teacher, an assistant principal, and now a principal of Hampton City Schools. So
Nice. Good.
favorite role
Very
right
good.
now.
Yeah. Wow. And all four of y'all been in a long time. And Erik.
Oh, I feel crazy going after these three ladies because everybody has 20 plus years, and this is actually year 19 for me. So I'm almost at that 20 plus mark with Hampton City Schools. I currently serve as assistant principal at one of our middle schools here in Hampton City Schools, but I've also served as a history teacher and academy coach.
Wow, man. It's crazy, man. You guys are so grown and professional. I've known y'all since the bell was ringing and we was late for class. So for those watching, when I run this, for those watching, I went to high school with these four great individuals and I love them each dearly. Few of them, Marcia, we used to carpool. Our parents would take turns driving us to and from school. It was me, you, and Shay. And Billie, I've known you, gosh, we're going to talk about that forever. And Heidi, you know how much I love you. We went to high school together. And Erik, you've been my guy. We've hung out many years. But today is about your roles and your impact on the community and also the challenges as well as the successes you all have experienced. So before we dive into some of the hot topics and questions, I want to talk to each one of you. Billie, I'll start with you. And this is a question I ask everybody, you know, whether you're coaching or you're in the field of medicine. How did you get, Billie, in the field of education? You know, did that come to you and say, okay, I want to be an educator. I want to help people improve their reading skills. You know, because, for example, some people will say, well, I really wanted to go into fashion and up subbing, and next thing you know, I'm in teaching. But everybody has a story. So, Billie, what's your story that led you into the field of education?
There's a couple of things. Some are funny and some not so funny. But I knew in high school, and my mom always says you were one who knew, and I got frustrated with my boys because they didn't know, and I knew so early what I wanted to do. Partly because of my experiences with teachers. I had really good teachers who made learning fun. And starting in elementary school, I can still remember all of the names of all of my teachers. And I wanted to do that for kids. And I also had some negative impacts. Like we've talked about this a couple of times, but I've had a couple of really bad teachers who said some things to me that made me, again, want to be a teacher so that kids didn't feel the same way that I felt, especially when it came to reading, which eventually I think it's ironic that I'm in the position that I'm in now because in middle school, reading was not easy for me and had a teacher, say some things to me. And then in high school, I also did, I think it was called Natural Helpers. Was it?
Oh, yeah.
You were in it.
Oh, my God. I forgot all about that.
Yeah, and we started going
Sure
to
that
elementary schools talking about like drugs, not doing drugs, and say no to drugs or dare or whatever the program was at the time. And I really enjoyed working with those fourth and fifth graders that we worked with. I still have the pictures from all of that. And I knew then that that's what I wanted to do. And I'm not going to lie, the schedule, having summers off, it's always been, a perk. And it's why I've never taught summer school. But yeah, I mean, all of that, a lot of things impacted that. But I knew going into college, that's what I wanted to do. I knew coming out of it, that's what I wanted to do. It's never anything different.
Nice. Yeah, we are definitely, as I tease our audience, we will come back to that teacher.
Yeah.
Because that's the one you and I and another gentleman had an encounter with that I want to share with everybody, including our panel. Marcia, how'd you come about into education? Because growing up with you, I thought you were going to go into like, I mentioned fashion or something. I mean, you just, I don't remember you having a bad day. But like, how did you get into education?
So I always had a love for children and education. I just love books, writing, and even growing up, even in my teen years, I would line up like dolls and line up teddy bears and used to do role playing where I was the teacher, and I used to love that. And then it's just like Billie, experiences throughout my elementary, middle, and high school years of having the teachers that had that positive impact and the ones that I felt were negative. I was quiet in my elementary years, and some of the teachers did not know how to approach that. And I wanted to be able to be that educator that I could give all students that chance. So it was something that's been in my heart since I was a very young child, and I just kept that passion throughout the years.
I love that. My oldest daughter did that. She's now at ODU studying sports psychology, but throughout her childhood, she would teach her younger brother and sister, and then she would line up her dolls and whatever, and I would just look. She even did a program in her middle school and high school where they went back like you did and other people did, and they gave back in community service and teaching people. In the summer, she spent some time working with autistic children. So it takes a special person to do what y'all are doing, as I've told you guys individually. So what kind of dolls were they? With Barbies?
I had Barbies, I had the larger dolls. I used to have it all.
All right. Well, and Heidi, what about you? How'd you get into the field of education?
So I was not one that thought I wanted to be an educator at all. I was certain I was going to be a clinical psychologist and
Wow.
do therapy on somebody one day. And I actually got a job after college working in a psychiatry office. And I realized very quickly that mental health was not for me. It was fantastic and dynamic and all that wonderful things, but it just wasn't something I wanted to do every day for the rest of my life. And so I actually was conversing with someone one day, like over the phone, and they said, "Where have you been the happiest? Like through your life, where have you been the happiest?" And of course, I was like, "Well, like at home with my mom and dad, that kind of thing." And they're like, "No, when you're out in the world, where are you the happiest?" I was like, "Honestly, school. School's always been like a place that's like been like a home for me." And they said, "Well, why don't you start looking there?" And so I called up Mr. Thomas, our principal from Hampton High School. And he was the principal at Machen Elementary at that point. And I called him up and I said, "Hey, can I come check out an elementary school?" And he hooked me up with Sue Lively, who taught kindergarten. And I walked in, and like within 5 minutes, I was like, "This is what I'm meant to do. Like, this is where I'm meant to be. This is it." And so I went to CNU and signed up for a master's program, and the rest is history. So
Yeah, Mr. Thomas.
Yeah,
Which
Mr.
is-
Thomas.
Yeah, man. I haven't heard that name in a long time.
Yeah.
You say you walked into an elementary classroom?
Yeah.
God bless you.
Kindergarten classroom. I walked in and there were 5-year-olds running everywhere, but it just felt so like home. And I just was like, "This is it. I'm done." I walked out. I told my mom, I was like, "Going to go get my master's degree in teaching, and this is what I'm meant to do." So.
Yeah, I used to go in elementary classrooms, pick my kids up, and their friends used to try to climb me.
Yeah.
Because I was sitting there, they would literally just jump on me and climb me. They call me Shaq. I guess to them I look like an oak tree. But God bless you going to elementary school and being inspired. That's amazing. And Erik, what about you?
Absolutely. Very similar to these young ladies. Pretty much going into college, I know I had a love for history, and I think that was really sparked by a lot of our teachers at Hampton High. I remember Frank Adams, Jim Wilson, Marcia Snyder. They were kind of instrumental in kind of building that love for history. And I enjoy reading and sharing stories. So I think that's the kind of push that I had to go into history, major in history, and then wanting to come back and really teach those stories. And ironically, Vick, when I started my career in Hampton City Schools, I started teaching elementary. I was a third grade teacher at Phillips.
Really?
Yeah, I started my career in elementary, yes. And moved away and came back to Hampton City Schools and had an opportunity to teach back at Hampton High. Because of course I had the history degree, so ended up in secondary, and then from there just flourished. And I appreciate everything that not just Hampton High has offered me, but also Hampton City Schools.
All right. So we all hear your foundations, and these are all great, unique stories. So now we're going to dive into the nuts and bolts of your jobs, because I have the unique perspective of, I remember I got cut from the Baltimore Ravens, and I came back home. I graduated tech, and I'm living my dream, and I'm on television. I'm in the daily press, and then, the New England Patriots will draft me. And then I heard from the Steelers, and next thing you know, I'm with the Baltimore Ravens. I didn't get drafted, and I got cut in minicamp, and then I came home before I got married, before I went to grad school, and I come back home to HBT, our city, Hampton, and it was a very unique situation because my mom has been in the field of education for 50 plus years. But I didn't have a job. So I started subbing. And I remember I was subbing at Jefferson Davis Middle School with our mutual friend and my brother, Adrian Parker was there, Lloyd Tucker, and Damon Bako. 3 of us were ex-standout collegiate athletes. And it was a very humbling experience because I thought, okay, I'm going to go down here. I went to the city of Hampton, the main office of the place you go to. I got the fingerprints background check and did the little training. And I was like, oh my God, this is crazy. Because it was a whole new world. The kids were different. And I'm not even, remember, I'm the same age as y'all, so I'm not old yet. I'm in my 20s. And I'm like, I'm still cool. But this is middle school. And these kids were off the chain. I don't mean that in a negative way. Just energy and hormones and get out my locker. So how do y'all handle, and anybody can go first, how do y'all handle the new school? Because this is a different time. These are different, unique. We didn't have these growing up. And it's just different. How do you stay connected with the changes going on outside of school as well as the changes going in school? Anybody can go first and we'll just go around.
I'll go first. For me personally, I would say it's building relationships with students and parents. I have had a lot of unique situations with students that had behaviors that other teachers may have not been able to handle, but that relationship piece that I have with the student to let them know that I believe in them, and sometimes it's okay to make bad choices, but we have to get on the right path, and just that constant conversation. And then those parents building the relationship with a positive. So when I do have to contact them, we're on each other's team. They know I'm part of their village. So that really helps the relationship piece with a lot that others may encounter that I may not see a lot of just because of relationships I have.
What about you, Billie?
Yeah, same thing. Just building relationships, especially in the school that I'm at now, because this is my 3rd school. It's the highest poverty level school in the city. And these kids need relationships, and there's a drastic change since COVID.
Yes.
The kids after COVID and before COVID, are different.
Yeah.
Different. And
Yeah.
behaviorally, academically, and there's challenges with all of them. But like Marcia was saying, like building that communication with the parents and building the communication with the kids and that relationship with the kids, it allows you, to build those relationships with them so that, you can keep in contact with it. Especially the older we get, the more I feel like, oh my gosh, I really don't know what these kids are into. It helps having kids of my own as well.
Yes.
They're getting older.
Well, and Billy, I was gonna say, talking about relationships, like that's how you find things out. Like, I mean, yes, I have like
Yeah.
a 16-year-old at home that I can check things out, but like I sit down with some of my fifth graders sometime at lunch just to like get the in.
The tea. They spill the tea.
They'll rate my outfits. They'll do anything like, oh, you got a 6 on today, Dr. B. And I'm like, I guess I need to up my game, so, just getting them to, tell you what's going on in the world. Because I think kids, like you're correct, kids change, like COVID changes kids, time changes kids. But like the one thing that doesn't change with kids is human connection. And so like you can always come back to that. Like even if things change and technology changes, and I sometimes have to ask my fifth graders, like, hey, how do you do this on my phone? And they know within 5 seconds I don't, but human connection doesn't change. And so I think that's the piece that like always brings us back to the center is like things may change, kids may change, parents may change, dynamics of families may change, but human connection doesn't.
No doubt.
Yeah. And I'll also say, I think the beauty of like working in our own community is like a lot of the kids, we know their parents. We went to school with their parents. And I'm sure Heidi and Billy and Marcia can probably speak to this too. Like we've had some of the people we went to school with, their children, and now we're their grandchildren. So we've been in the game a long time. Yeah, it's crazy. But
staying in the community lets you like, I'll have people from other schools that I've been at, and they like circle back to my new school, and then they're like, oh yeah, and so it's like that automatic connection. They're already on your team kind of thing. So
wow. So hold on, Erik. You said people we went to school with, their children and a few grandchildren.
Mm-hmm.
Man.
Yeah.
Good thing y'all were all well loved and well liked. Good thing. Yeah. But we went to school. We had, Hampton High is a very, especially during our era, was a very unique situation in which we're known for sports and all the different things. But we also had some characters. I'm gonna leave it at that. So y'all haven't had to run into any characters, children?
Not so far.
Okay, all right. Look, Marcia, I see you processing. All right.
I may have. I have had some situations where I've had children of our classmates in my class, and we did not have a relationship in high school. And once their child was in my class, they was like, okay, we were able to build, we knew of each other, but that relationship piece really helped when we actually was working together as a team to help build their child's academic level. And they got to see that I was on their side, whereas in high school, they really didn't get to, we didn't have a chance to like talk and get to know each other. But like you said, that community.
She taught my son.
Yep,
and I was gonna say she didn't teach mine, but she kept mine.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
Oh,
well, that's a good.
It's enjoyable to see them grow and like, oh my gosh, I went to school with like, and Billy and I realized we were in the Future Teachers of America. We realized through a picture.
She didn't even remember me when she ran into me again.
Oh my God, we were right beside each other.
I said, Marcia, I've known you since middle school.
Like, yeah.
And then with Heidi, I just knew of Heidi. Yeah. And then to be able to, have her daughter in the summers. I mean, it was great. I mean, I just really enjoyed that piece.
Yeah.
And let me say this, Marcia is a phenomenal teacher. I will say that. Like, you have people who move to the city of Hampton And if they're in our school zone and the school that Marcia teaches at, people already know Miss Lewis. I want my child in Miss Lewis class. I want my child in Miss Lewis class. So, I mean,
Wow, I love it.
that speaks to the wonderful job she's doing. And I tell Marcia that all the time. You know, I give her flowers all the time. She's a great teacher. Everybody on this panel is a great teacher. That's why we're still in the profession, still doing what we do.
Absolutely. And speaking of Erik, won't you? I know you were, because you were rocking the Vicktory Life shirt, and weren't you and Marcia both named at one time Teachers of the Year?
Teachers of the Year, yes,
Yes,
yes.
yes. When was yours, Marcia? What year was that?
Oh goodness, Billy, when was that? Because you were after me. That was in.
I was 2018, and
You too, Billy, right?
I want it. Both Marcia and
All
I.
four were.
Twice.
We all four were.
Yeah, all of us were.
Yeah.
I missed that. I'm sorry,
I'm
Heidi.
just
I
a lot
missed you.
longer than the. We won't
I
get
got
it.
You know,
2017. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I was 2018, and we 2007.
And Robert E. Lee, I want to say it was. Oh my gosh, Robert E. Lee might have been 2005.
you know,
I think mine
I
was.
was only a teacher for a couple of years at Robert E. Lee.
Yeah, me too.
wow, that's amazing. Four of y'all. I didn't know about yours, Heidi, but yeah, that's pretty remarkable. This was all legit. There was no cash app being exchanged. This was no.
Nope.
Well, that's great. Well, okay. So the next topic I want to get into is the misconceptions versus the facts. Today's generation, and many times as someone that works in mental health as a licensed therapist, and I spend my days and my years dedicating my life to families and youth. Every generation has a label. We were part of the hip hop generation. You know, we were 90s kids, and we dealt with different labels and stereotypes, especially during that era. There was a lot of different things going on. Many of us were the first to go to college. College was a big thing when we were growing up. Also, there were a lot of different things from outside the school system to different benefits, or challenges. Cell phones weren't around, but they had the pagers. There were different challenges in different communities, from the drug situation, as well as other challenges in regards to keeping kids in school. Today's a different time. And there is a myth or misconception, and Erik, I'll start with you, and I hear it all the time. These kids are lazy. They're selfish. They're ignorant. They're entitled. They don't want to come to school. Why would you waste your time educating these kids when many times, when they get to a certain place, they're not able to learn, or their parents are terrible, or, why would you get into a profession like education when you could be doing something else, making all this money? I hear that all the time. I'm a little biased because of you four and my mother, but at the same time, I hear it all the time. Erik, I'll start with you. When you hear those labels, those kind of comments, what's your response?
I just always remind people, like we talked about earlier, it's a different time. We live in a different time. And I think, and I want to say too, I did work with your mom for a couple of years at Bethel High School. It was a great experience because your mom was so very much old school teachers. Expectations were here. Well, here, I'm going to come out the frame. And I mean, you had to rise to those expectations, and that's it. And your mother never slacked up, never gave them any room to wiggle. I mean, basically, what the expectation was. But I want to say, I think one of the greatest misconceptions when we talk about the youth of today is just, and this is coming strictly from my high school lens, is like everybody has to go to college to be successful. That's not true. I think that's a huge misconception because there's so many of our young people who are talented in other facets, and then they can go off. They can be an influencer, a podcaster, and that's what I love about our area 757 is we have so many resources here. We have the shipyard, we have NASA Langley, we have the naval base. So you have all of these avenues after high school that our young people can go into, get involved into, and just be successful. So I would just say the greatest misconception is that idea that you have to go to college to be successful.
Yeah. What about you, Heidi? When you hear those stereotypes or misconceptions?
So, I mean, I think that, I think there's always some sort of like stereotypes that link onto kids, like you said, back when there were stereotypes that were attached to us. I think the core of it is kids are still kids. We can call them entitled, we can call them lazy, we can call them whatever. They come with a set of experiences from home, from family life, from, prior schools. But the heart of the matter is they're kids. And, and you'll hear me say it 1,000 times. And sometimes I think people get tired of hearing it, but it really kind of boils back down to that connection piece. Like, I can feel entitled when I walk in, but then I connect with somebody and like, I now want to do. I don't feel it, I don't feel that entitlement, or people don't look at me as entitled anymore. The same thing, like I might appear lazy, but instead it might be a reading deficit, or it might be, the fact that nobody has believed in me prior to, this experience. And so, I'd always tell my teachers, like, it's about connecting, and it's really about making kids belong. Because if I belong, and that's what, and I'm a firm believer in this, and this is a big push in Hampton City schools right now, but I'm a firm believer in this because while I was in high school, like, I felt like I belonged. Like, I felt like the people, I might not have hung out with everybody, but I really felt like I belonged. I felt like the adults made me feel like I belonged. The people surrounding me made me feel like I belong. And so I feel like if we do that, like all those stereotypes and those, things, those labels we attach to kids can start to melt away. Like, I just really believe, I wholeheartedly in my core believe that.
Yeah, that is a great point, Heidi. I never thought about that till you said, like, I was one of those guys that I have my crew, my great friends that I've been tight with for decades, but I could then pop into the journalism room and hang out and talk to different people. And then I could go and I would see Billy and them and everybody, Carmen and all them in that one room. I don't even know what room that was, what classroom that was. Yeah, you guys would be in there hanging out. And I always felt taken care of, and I felt like I belonged. That's actually a great point about connections and feeling like, well, that's actually, I never thought about that. I'm going to give you copyright credit when I use that when I'm speaking.
Okay.
Yeah. No, that's a great point. But Billy, you talk about the misconceptions and negatives or the labels these kids get. You work in a situation in which you're trying to help and empower, encourage, and teach with them to understand overcoming maybe a disability. So they have to come to you. Some of them might be guarded or afraid or, uncertain, and you have to connect with them immediately. So when you hear those things I mentioned that I've heard for the last 30 years, entitled and this and this, what's your response?
I go back to what Heidi said in building the relationships with these kids. I see my first worry when starting this new job was these kids aren't going to want to come with me because I'm that pull-out teacher who's going to come and pull them out, and it's going to make them look like they are, different from everybody else in their class. So I've tried really hard to turn it into a reward. And so now when I go into these classrooms, everybody wants to come with me. So they don't even care if they're coming with me or not, because they look at it as something special because I've built those relationships with them and they see what it's like to come with me and leave. They leave every day feeling confident. I see them before their tests. So again, it goes back to building that relationship and knowing what they're like. So when people say things to me about, how do you work with those kids? Because they're still kids. You just have to get to know them. They're different than we were, that's for sure. But just have to get to know them. Yeah,
very true. And I appreciate people like you. And we get ready, after we hear from Marcia, we're coming back to that story I referenced earlier. Marcia, I don't think I've ever seen you. Gosh, I've known you for a long time. I'm trying to remember when I've never seen you not smiling. So you come in with so much energy. You got that beautiful smile. I can see why Erik says, you're that teacher he mentions a lot, and everyone wants Miss Lewis. But it's got to be challenging sometimes because you come with so much positive energy and a perspective. and you might hear a label, or you guys get the school files on each kids, and some of these kids have been mislabeled, or they might not be motivated, or they are, but they just need someone like yourself to come in, like Heidi mentioned, and connect with them. So when you hear those misconceptions and stereotypes and those labels, what is your response?
So back to what both ladies said is a lot of people don't realize the story. Like when they say, "Oh, that child is lazy," that child may have been going to home, homeless. A lot of situations where people have stereotyped, they have not been able to build that relationship to get to know that child's story. And 9 times out of 10, when it's a stereotype, it's a story behind it. And that's what I try to do, is to build that relationship so that the parents and the child can come to me and I know that story. And when I do, it helps me approach it from a different lens to help that child become successful, whereas the odds may have been against them. So that's very important to me, is to like really have that relationship so I can know that story, because there's a lot of stories that will break your heart. That I'm like, oh my gosh, even as an adult, I wouldn't be able to, it would be hard to face a lot of the challenges that these kids go from day to day to day, from abuse to, and it comes from all different levels. It might be poverty, it may be a home that looks like it's together, but it's a lot of stories.
Yeah, no, I believe it. And that's the unique thing I've learned over the last 3 decades, not just from my mother, but, when seeing you guys shine and the impact you all have had, and talking to guys like JJ, who went to high school, is the ahead of us. And even recently, Keisha, Dr. Samuels was on. She's got one, a Legacy Spotlight, coming out. It is very difficult to do your job. I spoke to the City of Newport News in February for the DSS, Department of Family Services. I was a keynote speaker for their City Day, for Human Service City Day. And it was over 400 people there. And I was a keynote speaker. And I called them superheroes. And I call you all superheroes too. And many times when you say that, people look at you and they say, what? Because you think Avengers or Spider-Man or Batman. I call you superheroes because many times you have to go into your profession and encourage, empower, and empathize. You have to wear different hats. Sometimes you're a coach. Sometimes you're a motivator. Sometimes you're a good listener. Sometimes you have to cry. Sometimes you have to advocate. That takes a lot of energy and emotion. It takes a lot of commitment, where it's not easy. And one bad response or one delay can take a child off their path, which is important. That's why I call you superheroes, because you do superhero-like work. So I just had to say that in this Legacy Spotlight. I can't say it enough. And, you mentioned, Marcia, a word which I'm going to segue into a story I want Billie to share about something her and I experienced. You mentioned heartbreak. And I remember, and Billie reminded me of this when we were messaging each other. I was sending her a hoodie, and she took me back, and so she unlocked a very bad memory. So Billie, when I got out that message with you, I had to pull over. Real talk. I'm sharing this right now. No one knows this, and I got emotional because Billie and I went through a very difficult experience. I went to Eaton Middle School. I grew up on Shell Road, and my mom hates when I say this now because she worked at Lindsay, but she wouldn't let me go to Lindsay. She was like, because a lot of my friends were there and I needed to focus. And she was like, you're going to go to Eaton. And at that time, going to Eaton was a big deal because you had to apply. So I'm glad I went, because I met everybody that went to different high schools, because my wife always says, how do you know everybody? And it wasn't just because of sports. It was really because of Eaton. I met everybody that went to different high schools. But Billie and I were in an English class together. I'm not going to say the teacher's name unless you want me to, Billie, because it's my legacy spot. I won't say it. Okay. We had a teacher. Yeah. And she pulled us out the classroom. Billie, I'm going to let you pick off there and you share it, because this is what I mean about a heartbreaking situation that could have went left, and it motivated Billie and I. But Billie, you speak on it. Let everybody know about this story you and I experienced in middle school.
8th grade English. I don't remember the book we were reading. I'm pretty sure it wasn't The Outsiders because I knew that book because I had watched the movie.
I love that book too. I read that
I
one.
probably
I
read it
love
because
that.
it had cuss words in it. I know. I remember. But we were reading a novel of some type, and we were taking quizzes and doing journal entries and things like that. And she took me, you, and another guy out in the hallway and basically reamed us about telling us that we didn't know what we were doing. She obviously knew we weren't reading. We were stupid. I don't think she used the word stupid, but that's what I heard. She said she knew we weren't doing our work. We weren't putting forth our best effort. And she just kept going on. And all I could hear was, you're stupid, you're stupid, you're stupid. Like, and because I felt that way about reading anyway, because I had already been put in remedial reading classes in 6th and 7th grade. And every time I'd get put in these classes, it was because I had low test scores. And I'd be in there and they'd be like, you don't need to be in here. I was like, I know, I just can't take a test. And so I'd get put back in the regular English class. And then I'd go into another, because we take a test at the end of the year, they put you in another English class. So I get put in this special English class again, and they're like, you don't need to be in here. And I'm like, I know what I'm doing. And so we get to this lady's class, and she took us out in the hallway. And it was at that point in time, I said, I don't want any kid to ever feel the shame that I felt in that hallway. And the reason I text Dwight about it is because I'm so proud of him and everything he's done. But I was like, look where we are and look at what that lady how that lady made us feel in that moment. And also, I'm thankful for the teachers I had at Hampton High School. I say this all the time, but the English teachers I had at Hampton High School helped me understand reading, I think, for the first time ever. And made me a great writer and all of those things, because I hated it because of that lady and didn't think I'd ever be able to, amount to anything, because I thought I really am stupid. I still have, self-esteem issues sometimes when it comes to things because of people like her. And she's the one that I remember the most, just making me feel that way. And I just remember you being there with me, Dwight. And I remember the other person too, because it was that vivid of a memory. And to make matters worse, she became a volunteer in the first school that I taught at. Years later. Yeah. So I have told this story over and over again, but I had told, we were standing up telling about our best teaching experience, or our best teacher experience and our worst teacher experience. And I shared that example. And then I said the teacher's name, and one of the other teachers was like, oh my gosh, she's one of our grandma volunteers or whatever at the time. And I was like, do not let her anywhere near your children. But it's so ironic how that came back around. But it was a very not exciting time.
Yeah, no, listen, when you unlock that memory, I pulled over and I got emotional because I was just like you, Billy. As to this day, you guys can see the plaques behind me. I have credentials and degrees, but I still have to use the same skills I learned in middle school because I have a processing issue. People don't realize this. It's not a cognitive delay, but back in the 80s and 90s, they didn't call stuff ADHD, or, they were still learning how to label different learning disabilities. But I got to middle school and I didn't test well, and they put me in remedial classes as well. And I had, help, and, my mom is big into education, so she would make sure I took my time. But I remember when Billy reminded me of that, and when we went in the hallway, I remember that feeling. I was so uncomfortable and so embarrassed because I never went into a class, especially English, which I actually majored in at one time at Virginia Tech. I never went into that situation not trying to do my work. I just struggled with processing and reading. And when that teacher took us out there, I didn't like her anyway. She was mean. But I remember when
Tucker's Lounge.
Yeah, yeah. She had that raspy voice, man. But it's so funny though. Certain books resonate with me because my youngest is a freshman in high school, and she read The Outsiders, and we watched the movie, and that was one of my favorite books to this day. But with that being said, and I'm so glad, Billy, you and I overcame that heartbreaking situation because we proved her wrong. And
it just goes to show the impact that teachers have on kids. You never know what words you say that kids are going to carry with them. And that's how important our job is.
When I was going to say, like, even just listening to y'all, like, there's two people that took very hurtful words and transpired them and had people around them to surround them and take that moment and change it into something that, you know, left a very, you know, big legacy as y'all are building your lives. But think about the number of children that that didn't have people surrounding them that she has, or, you know, other people have spoken to throughout their lives and have changed the course of a kid's life. You know, like, I am stupid, and so therefore, and so that, like, as I'm thinking, I was like, you know, you two are both successful, and it obviously kind of probably fueled a little fire at some point in making a bigger flame. But for some kids, they don't, and then it stifles whatever possibilities they had laying ahead. And so that's
great. That's a great point.
But, you know, very disturbing to me, and it's one of the reasons why, like, I went into admin, is to find all the teachers who can believe in kids and who can, you know, speak life into kids and build that community, and not, you know, because, you know, one moment can change things for people. So,
well, you're right, Heidi, and it's so funny because I remember when she pulled this out, you never know what your peers are going through too, because I'm like, the heck is Billy doing out here, bro? You know what I'm saying? Like, because you know, I'm looking at Billy. Billy is always a great friend to me. We had a lot of classes together. We saw her in the hallway, and we would, you know, y'all know I'm funny and silly, and she would laugh at all my corny jokes. And then I'm looking at her like, oh, she's struggling too. But next thing you know, man, like, she went down that thing and read it. She was talking to us. I mean, it was crazy, but, you know, I kind of suppressed that memory. But speaking of what you said, Heidi and Billy both, and I want to go around, and Erik, I'll start with you. You know, Heidi mentioned how you can make a break, and I called you guys superheroes. I mean that wholeheartedly. I want each one of you to highlight someone either that's worked with you, worked for you, or someone that you learned under that influenced you as an educator or a leader in the administration or school, someone that you admire. You know, a lot of times I still remember what Miss Dillard and Miss Courier did for me. Miss Courier was my earth science or environmental science teacher, and she was a real one, and I loved her. Miss Dillard, I had her for English, and she inspired me so much. We learned about poetry and books. I wrote poetry for years, and she got me really into English so much. I majored in English at first when I got to tech before I switched my major to what I'm doing now. But Erik, is there someone that, a colleague or someone you had at Hampton, or someone that you worked for? You can name more than one. I'm just saying that because as I give you guys your flowers, this is an opportunity for you to label someone else and honor them as well. So Erik, I'll start with you.
Absolutely. Really what comes to mind is fourth grade when I was at Armstrong Elementary. Mrs. Whitehead. I think she was instrumental, one, because she was my first black teacher, and we were taking some type of standardized test. I forget what it was, but I got to a point I was just frustrated, so I was just bubbling in stuff like B, 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 B. I didn't even care. It's just, yeah, I don't know. You're like 8, 9 years old. You don't know why you do that stuff. Like, and I remember she stood over top of me and she nudged me with her shoulder, and she was like, "What are you doing? Go back and erase all of that." And I remember I had to go back and erase all of that. And she sat with me and made sure that I did everything, answered each question correctly to the best of my ability. So I think little things like that was just in elementary. So that was just a sign that she cared. Like, she cared. She could have just let me go B, 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 B. And then the test scores would have came back, and then I would have been put in a remedial reading class the next year or what have you. So I think that was inspirational there. Middle school, I did go to Lindsay.
Oh, no shade to Lindsay. I know you and Heidi. Y'all went there.
No, Heidi went to Lindsay too.
Yeah, everybody thinks she went to Eton with me and Billy. And she was shit. Yeah, she went to Lindsay. She corrected somebody on my Facebook page. She said, "I'm a Lindsay girl, honey."
Yeah. I am proud of it.
Yeah.
I had the mom on the other side that was like, no, we live across the street. You going there? Like, yeah,
Yeah.
we're not taking you over to eating every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
But I'll
Erik,
just say real quick, Vic. Yeah, there were several teachers at Lindsay, and of course, we know we had some great teachers at Hampton High. So I think a lot of them, each of them, instilled something within me that I took moving forward. And I think that's one of the things that when I look at working with young people today, just investing in them so that I maybe encourage them to go into education or maybe go into a field that they will continue to like give back to the community. Because I think that's what it's all about, really just building good citizens, people who care about the community and people who want to give back.
yeah. What about you, Marcia? Is there someone you remember or someone you worked with recently that influenced you that you remember or you enjoy or you want to highlight?
Yes, my first grade teacher, I remember I'm a first grade teacher, but I remember my experiences in her class. And it's something, I was so young, but yet I remember those experiences and the connection with her. And I also wanted to say I'm not sure if you all knew that, but I started with the public schools, but I ended at, left fourth grade from Hampton City Schools because of I never forget this. I pulled up, I was all dressed up, my mom had my hair in the ponytails, I was ready. My first day, public school, and it was a sign that said that I don't belong there. So that's how I ended up here at Hampton University Laboratory School. Yeah. I pulled in that, I never forget that. And
Hold on, Marcia. Hold on, Marcia. Wait a minute. It was a sign?
yes. I get too emotional, so I don't want to go into exactly what the sign said. Yes. But I went I pulled in and it was a sign there. That's the sign in my mind was like, okay, I don't belong at this school. But I went and I tried, but I did not have success at that school. That's how I ended up at Hampton University Laboratory School, fourth grade. And the teachers there, even though they weren't public school teachers, they still, and I'm sure, we were in class together, and that's how I met you initially, had an important impact on me. But then I always thought, what about the parents that can't just pull their kids out and put them in private school, when things don't go well? So that was another reason why I wanted to be a public school teacher. And it was the teachers there as well who really impacted me to let me know that, some teachers may have made me think that I couldn't do it, but I can. And it was a lot of the teachers at the Hampton University Laboratory School as well that changed my mindset that even though I had those bad experiences, I can be someone. So.
Wow. This is why I do Legacy Spotlights. I never knew that story. Wow. I'm sorry you went through that, but look what it did for you though.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like Billie's in our situation. Wow. I'm sorry.
Yeah. It was a time where the schools were, it was getting to be diverse, but it was still pockets throughout the community where it wasn't accepted of students of color going into certain schools. So
yeah, I'm sorry. Well, they missed out. Look at you. Look at you now. I
ended up working at that school.
Oh.
One of my schools that I worked in. So, when I walked in, it made me feel good. I'm like, okay, I'm here.
Yes.
It make a difference. So.
Doesn't that feel good though? Doesn't that feel
does.
Good?
It's like what Billie said. She was beside that teacher who made her feel like she was no one. And walking into that school, that's the biggest joy that I could have ever experienced.
Love it. Yes. Yeah. Flex on them. Ain't it crazy? You can flex on them.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Gosh, man. So much insight. I didn't know that. Heidi, you're a principal. So you have people that report to you. You have a lot of weight on your shoulders. Is there anybody you learn from? Is there anybody that had an impact on you? Or is there anybody that's worked under you? Or, just this is a moment of reflection. So
I mean, I think there's a lot of teachers along the way, that have, like set an impact on me. We had phenomenal teachers at Hampton High, Joyce Courier, Doris
Mhm.
Dancy, I just.
Hold on, you can call him by their first name now? You can call him Miss, I say
Yes,
so,
I
Miss
am. I'm
Courier.
friends with them now. I'm
Oh
friends with them.
my, please tell Miss Courier I love her. I love her. I love
Yeah.
her.
When you're
Can't say Joyce.
look, when your environmental science teacher calls you up and says, "Let's have drinks," like you're on another level.
Oh man, I would love to have drinks with Miss Courier because she was
Yeah.
unfiltered in high school.
I have to set that up. We gotta go have.
Man, listen, I love her.
Love that.
I can't. But go ahead. I'm
But yeah,
sorry.
so I think one of the people as a teacher that I really was most impactful was Mary Waters.
Yes.
And she's now Mary Gearing. I had her for 4 years at Hampton High School. Like every year, I had her for English class in freshman year and then through journalism. And she connected with kids like she was just one of those people that just connected. And it wasn't like any particular kid. She connected with kids who were causing little stir trouble. And then she connected with kids that were straight A students. Like she just was a really good like relationship person. And so I knew when I went back to become a teacher, like I wanted to be like her. I wanted all kids to just like find me as like the spot to want to be, And so I strive a lot, and she knows this because I have spoken to her about this and her, impact. And she's very humble about it. And I think as an administrator, so I had two dynamic administrators that I worked under as an assistant principal, and they had both like created these schools where people felt like family and they looked out for each other and they were like all in for one another. It was just this banging community, and so I strive very much to be like them. The first one was Andrea Riddick, and then the second one was Ralph Saunders, who has a long history in Hampton, and he just really, really created this kind of community where everybody was like all in for each other. And so I strive every day to be like that and create a school like that where people are all in for each other, all in for kids, all in for supporting one another. And so he's probably my biggest, I want to grow up and be like him when I, finish this pathway.
Hey, can I jump in real quick? I want to say this about Ralph Saunders. That's a good guy. He is the one that actually really pushed me to go into administration. Because, prior to coming to his school, Bethel, I'd done 12 years at Hampton High. And I was looking for a change. So I found out that he had a position over there, called him up, decided to go over to Bethel. And from the time I started working in this building, he was always encouraging, motivating. And one of our earlier conversations, he said, "Erik, have you thought about going into administration?" I said, "No, Mr. Saunders, I'm not doing that. I'm enjoying the classroom. I love teaching. I'm not doing that." He said, "You should think about going to administration." And he really pushed me. And he told me because there's going to come an opportunity when a door is going to open for you and you want to make sure you have the credentials to be able to walk through that door. And I went home, thought about it, and that very next summer, I actually applied for an admin program up at the College of William and Mary. So again, if it was not for him, so when Heidi talks about that great leader, absolutely. He is one of the true goats.
He was really good at that, Erik. Like he was good at like calling out things that, and many people don't like, and you guys might connect with when I say this. I'm a very natural introvert. So a lot of people like will sometimes be like, "Oh, she's, doesn't want to hang with us. She doesn't want to." And so I tended to, when I taught, be like that. I'd kind of go in and like get my kids and like go in my classroom and shut the door and take care of my kids. And I remember him having a tough conversation with me one time, and he was like, you really like when you shut people off, I know you don't do it intentionally, but you really make people feel like you're unapproachable. And I went home and I tell this story all the time. I went home and cried. I was like, people find me unapproachable? What do you mean? Like, I I'm like, I want to be with all people, but I just like, it's so like, it's hard for me sometimes. And so I went home and I was like, I need to like figure out how to do this differently. And I went into a meeting the next time and I like walked up to people on my own instead of them. And I spoke to them and I was like, wow, this like changes things. And he was like, see where your strengths are, and you weren't not letting yourself unlock them. And I was like, wow, like, but he was just so like good at finding that piece and like unlocking it. And I just I want to do that every day with teachers. Like I want to find that strength and like unlock it and like make them be better, their better selves tomorrow. Like their better selves. Because we all have this like little piece in us that is ready to be unlocked. And like just I want to do that. I want to pass that legacy on to somebody else.
Yes. Very true. And Billie, what about you?
Quite a few at Hampton come to mind. I was at Burbank, Heidi. I had Mrs. Ray, who I think had the most impact as far as making me want to start to become a teacher. She was just fun. And she didn't judge me based on prior people in my family who she had also had. Some teachers, I've had your brother or sister, so I know how you're going to be. And I recently went and had lunch with her, and that was fun. But at Hampton, what switched the pendulum, so to speak, from our experience at Eton is going into Hampton. I had Nancy Fioca.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
She
amazing. She was another one. That was
English teacher. My gosh. Like I actually liked English that year. And Catherine Horn, who I had the pleasure of having for 2 years in a row. Erik, you were in my class.
Yes.
I love how y'all call him by their first name. This is like crazy to me.
But she wouldn't call me Billie. She refused to call me Billie because my first name is Catherine. And she was like, no, I am not going to call you Billie because my name was spelled the same way. So she insisted on calling me Catherine all the time, which fine, whatever. But she taught me how to annotate when I read, and that was huge. I still use that kind of thing today when helping my kids understand what they're reading. She just helped me dissect reading. And, like you, Dwight, it takes me a little bit longer when I read something to understand it. And that annotation piece just helped me kind of pick apart my reading while I read it. And no one had ever shown me that before. And that was 11th grade when I had her. I had her 11th and 12th grade. And she was just good. She was good at what she did. And so I wanted to make that same kind of impact on kids. So I had a lot of teachers like that.
It's crazy how, in a good way, crazy and remarkable how like you guys, all four of y'all, including myself, so I'll say all five of us, were able to go back to those moments. Heidi and Erik, what's that guy you guys just mentioned? I'm sorry, the leader?
Ralph Saunders.
Yeah, both y'all went right to that part, and remembering him and Heidi, that moment when he talked to you and pulled you to the side and empowered you. And we had these different teachers and educators and leaders that inspired us. One thing you all know a lot better than I do is the work, because you're in the profession, that you do behind the scenes. Like, this whole thing where y'all got summers off and y'all get snow days and all these different things. One thing I know from being Mary Vick's son is that educators and principals work hard. I mean, y'all work hard. So this next question I got, anybody can go first. How do you manage the burnout and what we call work-life balance? Because there are people, you guys, I have your bios, but I take notes, 27 years, 22, 24, 25 years. That does not come with all the time with everything, because you guys look great. We're in our 40s. Y'all all look great. Life has been treating you well. But there's some days that life throws you a curveball, or life throws you a different administrative change, a new policy, a difficult parent, or a handful of difficult students. This job, even though you guys are superheroes, is not without challenges. So how do you manage in work-life balance? Because some people get into the profession like y'all, and then they run because it's hard. This is not an easy job. It's a rewarding job because all four of you love it and you're inspired. You have your own legacies that inspired y'all. Now y'all are leaving a legacy. But I'm sure there's been doubts, and I'm sure there's been some days you're like, ooh, right? So go ahead, Billie. How do y'all manage work-life balance? Go ahead, Billie.
It's not easy at all, and especially once you start to have a family. And it's hard for me to talk about that without getting emotional, because
That's okay.
a lot of our time goes into other people's children. And when you have your own children who are struggling, like both of mine have dyslexia, which I probably had too. I don't know.
We didn't have those labels back then, but yeah.
Yeah. Both of my kids, struggled through school all the way through. And here I am, a teacher at Phenix, getting these phenomenal test scores. My kids, I'm getting 100% pass rate in reading, 100% pass rate in math, and my own kids are failing the SOLs. And I remember Anita Owens said to me one day, "You're tired of having helping other people's kids, and your kids need help. And the burnout is real, and it's hard." And so you just keep pushing, day after day, because you're doing it for other people's kids. And it's a hard balance to try and figure out, am I neglecting my own children for other people's children? There's guilt that comes with it. And I'm not saying that to make other people feel bad, but I don't think people realize how much, we sacrifice from our own family's time. And I look back on all of it now, because I do have a job that has a little bit more leniency. I have a lot more time with my family now. Part of why I did go for this job. But it's just, you have to find a way to push through and spend time and just close the computer. And it wasn't easy for me to do, because I wanted to be good at my job. And I didn't want people to look at me. I answered phone calls at night. I answered dojo. I did all of that. And they tell you not to do all that, but I couldn't help it, because I wanted to be what I wanted my kids to have in the classroom. And like Marcia was like that, like having Marcia as my youngest teacher, I could always contact her, and I appreciated about her. She was always honest with me. But trying to deal with that at home and trying to find a way to do it, self-care, just got to find a way to do it. I like to work out. That helps me mentally not fall apart.
Yeah. You all are like coaches I played for. When I was done playing football, I realized when I coached how much coaches pour into their players, and it's a year-round job, especially on the high school level, where you're only getting paid in stipends, and you spend many times more hours with your players than you do your own family. It takes a special man or woman to be a coach's spouse. And same thing for you, Billie, as you mentioned, how much you pour into other people. That's why I respect you both, all four of y'all. Excuse me. Marcia, how do you manage self-care, work-life balance?
Yeah, and I would piggyback a lot on what Billie said. That self-care piece I've learned a little bit later as we all get older. I'm like, okay, back when I first started, I could go. And now I'm like, hey, well, I am almost 50. So I have to remember that self-care and remembering why I'm doing what I'm doing. Celebrating the student successes helped me too. Like, okay, this is why I'm a teacher. This story I'm going to tell real quick really helped me to understand why I'm in the profession, because it is some days when I'm like exhausted and then trying to make sure that my own kids are on a good path. But I had a student, I'm also teaching, but I also tutor. So I worked with this young man. He was in a self-contained setting for about 4 or 5 years. All his elementary years, he was in a self-contained setting. He was told by the teachers that he couldn't do it. He wasn't going to make it in life. He needs to go think of other things that he could do. He told me, he was like, "Miss Lewis, I want to go to college. I want to go to college." And I'm like, You want to go to college? We're going to make it happen. He was like, but I'm in a self-contained classroom. You know, I don't even go out. I just go out for recess, and I just go out. So this young man became part of my family. He would call me. He was like, I need help with this essay. Look over it. And to make a long story short, he did get into some trouble. We talked through it, but he kept saying, I want to go to college. So throughout COVID, I worked with this young man, and he is now getting ready to finish up at ODU. And he's
Nice.
Yes. So through all the years of saying like, okay, have in self-contained special education, he did not let it be his barrier. We got through it, and to see him, and I'm gonna just cry because no one really understands what the young man went through in his personal life, through high school challenges. You know, he even tell me, he was like, he had so many opportunities to go another path, but he knew in his heart, and just to be there. And he always say, Miss Lewis, and just hug me and embrace me. So I have to remember those successes to help me manage that self-care piece, and to remember why I'm doing what I'm doing.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of stories just like his.
Yeah.
Even with the success that Billie's son, when I see him, I'm just like, oh my gosh, just to see them grow and flourish. That is self-care too.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt again, but
No, that's all right.
Piggybacking off of what Marcia said, watching students go from one extreme to the other at the end of the year and getting them to pass the test or go on to the next grade level really is the motivator. So even though I've neglected my family for 23 years, I neglected them. But every one of those years, the success and the pride that I feel in those kids when they make it and I still feel it in my role now, because I have kids where you don't think they're going to make it. You don't know if they're going to pass, but you convince them, and somehow in the end they pull it out and pass, pass the SOL. And I hate to always refer to the SOL, but that's a big barrier for a lot of them.
Like, yeah, when you have that passion and you have those stories like put you on a high, it's like, you just get so excited from, thinking
Somebody
back.
thought never would do it. And
Never, right. It's like,
you convinced.
I love it, man. I'm glad I didn't have to take the SOLs when I was growing up, but I love the story. Yeah. My kids told me that all the time. What about you, Heidi? Self-care.
So, I mean, I think it kind of shifts from like position to position that I've been in, to be honest with you, like, or phases in life. When I became an administrator, I would burn both ends of the candle, like, honestly, because I just was striving to get to the next level. And so I would just burn myself out. And I had, one of my mentors tell me, like, one time, they'll replace somebody in your seat at your job tomorrow. And I've seen it happen. Named the person that it happened to and said, they will replace the person in your seat, but at your dining room table, nobody's going to replace the seat where you sit.
That's deep.
That was profound for me, like, in that moment, because at that time I had a child who was, 2-3 years old. And that moment, it still sends chills on my spine or on my skin when I hear it, because that was like a turning point for me, where I was like, at some point every night I have to shut off what I do here so that I can pour into her. And so I would shut it off, pour into her. And it just became like a moment of like, I had to learn really hard how to prioritize what was important at work, because I can get 50,000 things as an administrator poured onto me all day long, parents, teachers, other administrators, students, everything. And it's like I had to learn to prioritize so that I could shut that off. We're at a different phase now. She's 16, still requires me to pour into her, but she has a little more freedom now. So I've had to shift now and start focusing on my physical well-being, and so, which has never been like a thing for me. So I'm over here aspiring to be Billie Holbrooks.
Yeah, Billy be getting it in, and Erik running
Yeah.
marathons.
And so I make myself leave every day at 3:00. Like 3:00, I'm like, I'm out of here. I'll pick back up later on this evening and do a little bit. But like at 3:00, I have to go home, go to the gym and take care of myself because I don't want my life to end and be short at 50. So
Mhm.
like I want it to continue. So I have to learn to take care of myself. And that was a hard lesson to learn. Like it was really hard. But the moment when that person said, like, they'll replace somebody here, but they won't replace somebody at your dining room table. And I was like, I mean, it still makes me want to tear up. I was like, wow, you're right. Like nobody can replace Laurelyn's mom, like, so I've got to be her mom, like right here, right now. Like, so, that's how I kind of prioritize like that care piece because I do want to continue to do this work. And so I don't want it to end short. And so in order to do that, I need to take care of myself and my home. And
Yeah. Yeah, Heidi, that's a bar too, as a kid. So that's a bar I'm going to also steal that from you. And also, as you ladies talk, specifically the ladies in here, we're going to have to do a part 2 series on this one because we're going to, we're almost done. But I'm serious. We got to do a part 2 on this Legacy Spotlight because I have so much more I want to talk to you about. It's because we didn't even get into the part that motherhood, and balance and all that. You both touched on it. But I have the unique perspective of seeing my mom, and this is back in the 80s and 90s when you had the textbooks and, lesson plans and all the different things that you brought. It was, more tangible, but I know a lot of stuff now is more digital, but work-life balance is such a challenge. And that's why I said, because I saw growing up and even now in my profession, work a lot with the schools, the behind the scene work you do. And the dilemmas you have sometimes when to walk away and when to keep going, why I say I appreciate you guys so much. And Erik, you're the last one on this topic. I know sometimes because you and I are close, Erik, I know how you sometimes get your work-life balance on, including last night at homecoming. You are going to enjoy life.
Yes,
but,
yes.
Speak on how you manage the work and the demands and taking care of yourself.
Absolutely. One of the things is I said, and you touched on this a little earlier about me running marathons. Like running is my therapy. It really is. And because when you're out there running, just the cadence of your feet hitting the ground, you're running through your neighborhood, you get to see life through a different perspective. You get to really focus on how green somebody's grass is, like little things, how much debris is on the side of the road when you're running down the street. But I'll say this, running and just definitely going to the gym. There was an older gentleman who since passed, who used to always go to the gym. Mr. Lewis was his name. And he would always go to the gym, close it down. He would always just do some walking, light resistance training, and swim a couple of laps. And I developed a relationship with him because I always just would see him in the gym all the time. And he always asked me how school was, how the kids are doing, and he just encouraged me to keep pushing forward. And, something came up and I just stopped going to the gym for a week. And he actually found somebody in the gym who knew me to contact me, to reach out to me and ask if I was okay because he hadn't seen me. And, one thing he always told me, he was like, hey, make sure you're getting your workout in and getting your rest. Those things are very important. But, and again, those things, that's just something I always carry with me. So that's kind of how I balance that work-life balance, is just making sure I'm getting my rest and making sure I'm getting my exercise, and always remember, like, what they say, tough times don't last, but tough people do.
Yeah.
That's definitely one of the mantras I keep in mind going forward.
Yeah. Well, speaking of that, I'm glad you're lasting. I'm glad all four of you are resilient in your professions and inspired. With that being said, we've come to the last point of our show for this episode, because I'm going to have you all back on, because I have so much I want to talk to you guys about. But just to kind of end our show, I let my guests give their final thoughts. And the final thoughts I want to hear from, and Marcia, I'll start with you, is each one of you, I want to hear your perspective. I grew up with y'all. Hampton High, for decades, has been known for some of the greatest athletes Virginia has ever seen. Iconic figures, We've also had entrepreneurs, entertainers, but without the phenomenal teachers we mentioned, you would have never had any of those great athletes and other people who've made it. The teachers and educators and principals are the foundation of who we are and who we become.
Yes.
There's no doubt about that. As much as we can talk about all the guys and women in that trophy case when you walk into Hampton High and the pageantry and tradition and the colors and all the legacies and all the great memories and homecomings, you can't have that school stand on its ground without teachers and educators. You four are leaders of the new school. You are part of the forefront and the foundation of what our youth are becoming and what they will be. So without that, though, we don't have anything. Without you, we don't have anything. So Marcia, I'll let you lead off. What perspective do you have in why education is essential and why you do what you do? Like what perspective do you have? What life lessons do you want to share that this profession you've been in has taught you, and why do you wake up every morning with passion and purpose to keep doing it?
I want to say, like we talked earlier, I've always had a passion for education, for children, for students. And I think because when I walk in that classroom every day, I was that child, and I have to remember that. I was the quiet child, and that too, also that everyone has a story. And I just want them to know that I'm there for them. I want to teach them to become their best and to let them know that, hey, I'm part of your village. I'm going to be there. I'm going to help you. And if I can't help you, I'm going to find the right avenues to help you become successful. And even looking at my own kids and the teachers that they have, I just want our youth to know that they can do it. They have a lot more, the phones, they have a lot more different obstacles than we had, but yet I know that they can be successful. And I want them to, even when they grow up and they hear my name, Miss Lewis, I want to be that name that they be like, okay, she was there for me. She supported me. She helped me. And I just want to be that person. So. Yeah.
You sound like you're becoming that. Well said, Billie.
Yeah, same thing. I want to be that person. And a lot of my students, because I've been in it 27 years, a lot of my students have come back to me now, thanks to social media and things like that. They've found me. Recently had one young lady who I taught probably my 4th or 5th year teaching, reach back out and say that I was the reason she became a teacher. And and I still keep in contact with her, and that was powerful for me, and that makes me keep going. I've only got, I could retire in 6 years. Crazy to think that, but when now I have all these students who, I think my first class is now probably about 36 years old, and I see them out. I see them with kids, and when they see me and remember me, that's my why. I want to be the Miss Horn, the Miss Fioka, the Miss Ray, all my teachers that I remember. I love being that person in their lives, because that was the reason I went into teaching, is I wanted to leave a lasting legacy or impact on their life. And when they come back to me, I know I did my job.
And I just want to piggyback on what Billie said. Yesterday was Hampton University's homecoming, and I was standing there just clapping. And then the young man that was Mr. University on the float, I heard someone say, Miss Lewis, Miss Lewis. He was like, he jumped off the float to come and give me a hug and embrace me. And
oh my goodness.
Stop the parade. And that is like, okay, this is my why.
We always did say you were a showstopper. So that literally you're now a showstopper.
It just brought tears to my eyes, yes.
I love that. This is why I said, man, I wanted to do this when we connected at the reunion, because, and I told Shantae, because I've never been afraid of confrontation or just speaking my mind, I almost grabbed the microphone and just started to talk about all the great things you guys are doing. Because as much as people may talk about me and brag on me. I brag on all four of y'all. I have people changing the world and changing lives. So, Marcia, I'm not surprised by that. Billy, I'm not surprised by that. I'm happy to hear it warms my heart because I know you all personally and I see what you're doing professionally. So thank you. And Heidi, same question. Final thoughts.
So, I mean, I think that this position, both as like a teacher, as assistant principal, I think it's a very, and by powerful, I don't mean, like superhero, Marvel comic powerful, but I mean, we're in a powerful position. Like we can impact so many different areas of our community. Like it's not just like, if I'm an architect, I'm going out and I'm creating places for people to be. But I mean, really, truly, we are sending and creating opportunities for kids to be in so many different fields. And I think that was always profound for me is like, I had all these great educators who impacted me, but they didn't just create other educators. They created, people who are running our military, like I turned around at our reunion and I was like, wow, we got people here who are like high ups in the military. We got people here who are, doing so many, I mean, like Keisha's over there, impacting on the collegiate level, like there's just so many people who are impacting so many corners of the world. And so that's like when I sit here in this office, like that's what I think about. Is like I want to pour into this community and help create these big dreams for kids to be heads of military and to be heads of Bethel High School one day, or to be, the mayor in Hampton, or, to be the next, Commonwealth attorney, like whatever it is, like I want to help do that and, lay that groundwork. And so I think that's kind of what continues to push me every day is like, I just want to, this is my way to give back to my community. And, it poured into me so well that I just want to give it back. And when I see kids come back, like Billy and Marcia said, like when I see kids come back that are adults now and they're doing things that are really impacting their community, that's when I'm like, okay, that was worth all the hard nights. That was worth all the sweat. That was worth all the tears. That was worth all the lesson plans written. That was worth all the, that was it. That's it.
Love it. I love it. You're so passionate, man. I love it.
I get fired up about
Yeah, I love it. No, that's good. Yeah. That's great. Erik.
Yeah, I guess, my why is, one thing I love about being in education is just, again, like all of these ladies talked about, just being able to pour into people. One of the beautiful things in my particular building, we are a pre-K through 8 building. So again, we got kids from 4 to 14 years of age in our building. And just being able to walk through those spaces and see the young little kids who look up to me, and especially as an African American male, is something that is a rarity in education. To be able to walk in those spaces and be welcomed and greeted, and again, just because some of these young students do not have fathers at home, so again, to be able to be somebody that they can see and they can aspire to be, I think is my biggest why, and just and getting a lot of them to understand everybody's not going to be an athlete. You know what I mean? So some of us are going to be scholars. But kind of like what Heidi said, you talked about you raising, encouraging the next generation of engineers, architects, doctors, first responders, politicians, all of that. So I think just really going through those spaces and meeting those kids and inspiring them and knowing that they have a safe place that they can come and talk to me or bounce ideas off me. And again, like Marcia also said, staying in touch with these people and these youngsters when they grow up and grow old and become working adults. Again, that's that community connected piece that we have. So that helps fuel my why. Marcia, go ahead. I see you want to jump in.
Yes, and I got excited when you said that because I thought back to how Erik, for Black History Month, he wore a different shirt each day. that had different people who made a difference throughout our era, and I even learned. So he would come in each day and he would show the students his shirt, and then he would put a clip on the board and tell them about it. And if you could see those students' faces, like, oh my gosh, like it was different singers and just different people that had an impact on our world. And that even, and Erik, I learned, I used to enjoy, I'm like, okay, Mr. Wilson, Gary, come in and give us a Black History lesson.
Yes. The kids used to love it. The kids would look forward to it. Matter of fact, a couple of kids have seen me this year. Like, are you going to come to my class this year with your T-shirts?
Yeah, and if he was late, they was like, well, what time is Mr. Wilson coming? Because they could not wait to see that, okay, I could be that singer, or I could be, I mean, he acknowledged some really, really phenomenal people on his shirts. And
Erik, I'm going to need you to come to my school.
I can zoom in.
And you record that, please, sir. Could you put that recorded?
It was exciting. I really enjoyed that, and I'm looking forward to that this year as well. Because and then they used that knowledge because I think it was something later on in the year, and they was like, "Hey, I remember Mr. Wilson, talked about this jazz," and so it was just wonderful. That was awesome.
I love how you all honor each other, and how, in a lot of ways, how God allowed you guys to get entwined in your different professional walk. It didn't even happen by accident. It was organic. It was natural. Right. How you guys all stay connected. I'm very thankful for this episode because I've had Vicktory Life was established in 2018, and the movement is real. It's really taken off, and it's taken off and done well because of the families and the community members I serve, but also because of people like all four of you. To see you guys, rock the shirts and the hoodies, to see you guys change the world gives me chills, and it warms my heart, as I mentioned earlier throughout this episode. This will not be the last time y'all will be on, because I will definitely, once this runs, I will have you back on. But I also want to say before I sign off that I'm so proud of y'all. I'm proud of y'all because we grew up together and we all share different memories and different times. We all had similar experiences. We took different roads to get to where we're at. And I brag on you more than y'all know. Heidi, Erik, and Billie and Marcia. Y'all have no idea how much I brag on y'all.
We brag on you too.
I know. Every time I sport this shirt, it's not a lie. Somebody stops me and will say, and usually, I'll be honest with you, they're like, is that a church? And I'm like, no, let me tell you about this movement. So that is reciprocal, because we do the same thing. Like we are very proud to be your friend and be connected to you and have you in our history, so that we can also brag on your movement and what you're doing in the community.
Well, thank you. And it means a lot. It means a lot. I mean, I Marcia, Billie, all of us, Heidi, Erik, we've overcome a lot, but we're shining stars. And I appreciate how y'all help others shine. I can't tell you enough. I can't tell you enough how proud I am of y'all. And I speak for so many families and colleagues and peers when I say thank you. And thank you for being on. And to the people that subscribe to my show, thank you. Continue to support the Vicktory Life movement. Continue to empower others to get educated. Support these three wonderful young ladies, as well as my guy, Erik, my brother. I guess I should say Mr. Wilson. I don't know. I feel so. Y'all call everybody by first names. Anyway, on a serious note, thank you all for joining us. Thank you, everybody. Please continue to support the Vicktory Life movement. And like I say every episode, no matter where you go, no matter what you do, make sure you have a positive impact and you leave a great legacy. I'm Dwight Vick, owner and founder. On behalf of this team, this panel, I say thank you for watching. Appreciate you.